Welcome to the Car Guys, and this week a revolutionary classic car from BMW that you've probably never heard of. A car with plastic panels that can be removed and swapped, a car designed by the same guy who gave us the Porsche 924, and a car with doors so crazy that they've never been repeated. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the BMW Z1. Yes, this week it's all about the BMW Z1, or Z1 if you're American, that I have right here in its sharp top red paintwork. It's in perfect condition, and I'd like to thank Jack, its owner, for letting me have a go. The Z1 was launched at the Frankfurt Motor Show on the 11th of September 1987, the same year, incidentally, that BMW also brought us the 750i with its V12 and the 3 Series Touring. It was shown to the media in autumn 1988 in the Italian town of Punto Alla, just before customer cars were due to be delivered. To show the bloodline, BMW parked the new Z1 next to a 507 from the 50s, its previous two-seater sports car. Produced from 1988 to 1991, although initial orders were strong, it wasn't a sales success outside of Germany. Only 8,000 were produced in the end, all left-hand drive. The Z in Z1 stands for Zukunft, German for future, and it was the first car to come from BMW's entirely separate Technik think tank department for new vehicles. Known internally as ZT, this was a 60-person team that created the Z1 in just 6 months. Designed by Dutchman Harm Legay, also responsible for the Porsche 924, the chassis was made from a monocoque of individual steel sheets, which was then welded, and then the whole thing was hot dip galvanized. This had the dual benefit of preventing corrosion, but it also made it even more rigid. The floor was made of plastic and was bonded and bolted to the structure to help reduce weight, and it therefore only weighed 15 kilograms. This, combined with the oversized sills, made the Z1 incredibly strong and improved crash protection, especially as a roll hoop was integrated into the windscreen and directly connected to the 2 A-pillars. The Z1 featured underpinnings from the 3 Series of the time, the E30, and the 2.5-litre engine from the 325i. And of course, being such a revolutionary car, the bonnet just doesn't open the normal way. You pull a lever down by the steering wheel, the front lifts up just enough for you to grab hold of this edge, and it opens forwards. Look at that. This is the 2.5-litre straight 6 from the BMW 325i. The engine makes 168 brake horsepower, that's 170 PS, and that's good for a 0 to 60 time of 7.9 seconds. Top speed, 140 miles an hour, which is 225 kilometers per hour. And that engine develops peak torque of 164 foot-pounds, that's 222 newton meters. Despite those weight-saving measures, the Z1 still manages to come in at 1,250 kilograms. The rear suspension was a central spherical double wishbone system that went on to become the Z-axle on the rear, one of the first BMW multi-link suspension setups. And it was also 10 centimeters lower than the equivalent 3 Series, helping to lower the center of gravity. One of the innovations of this car was the removable resilient plastic body panels called xenothermoplastic. They could be swapped out for different colors using nothing more than a screwdriver, and apparently it only takes about an hour. However, I know this to be complete shit, because to try and take the panels off this car is a complete pain in the neck. The reason why the Z1 is not adorned with spoilers, wings or a front splitter to aid downforce as modern cars are is because aerodynamics was a priority of the Technics team, with the specific aim of using the basic shape of the car and its underbody to achieve the desired aerodynamic effect. The front end is low and smooth, the windscreen is set at 62 degrees, and underneath the car is entirely flat, but with a slight upward tilt at the back. The body tapers in around the doors to enhance the wide look of the wings. The front BMW kidney-shaped grille is actually incorporated in the bumpers. It's all very deliberate, but of course we've avoided it for long enough. The Z1 is all about the doors. In this case, vertical sliding doors, a unique feature that is the defining characteristic of this car. And here we are, this is what it's all about, the vertical doors, which you open and close using from the outside this button. Isn't that fantastic? Or if you're in the car, you actually pull a lever, which feels totally counterintuitive because it's the same action that you would use to open normal doors in the Z1. They raise upwards. How cool is that? And if you want to open the rear of the car and get the soft top out, you pull this little cable down here. That allows you to then open up the rear, and you then pull up the manual hood. And there you go. The only downside, of course, is that because you've got that soft top roof, the boot space is pretty small. Just enough room for a few small, soft bags. And thanks to an era of sketchy health and safety rules, you can drive the car with the doors fully down, the roof down, for a true open-top sports car experience. There were actually plans for a coupe, as seen here, development, and also a four-wheel drive version. Top red is the most popular colour choice. Over 6,000 of the cars were in that colour, as is this one. Fun yellow is the rarest colour, only 133 came in that. And initially you could also get green metallic and dream black metallic. One of the things I really like about this car is it's small. It's only 4 meters long and 1.8 meters wide, which means it copes perfectly with modern day traffic and width restrictors, and actually it's a nice little small thing to thread down British B roads. By the time it was launched, BMW already had 4,000 orders, enough to take it to 1990, and in fact the Z1 may have been the first car to command a premium, with new cars being offered immediately for 20,000 Deutschmarks over list, according to BMW. That's £6,500 on a car that cost £26,000. And yet, up until recently, the Z1 was relatively unloved, underappreciated, and undervalued. No one wanted them. You didn't hear anyone say, "Oh, I wish I had a Z1." A low mileage, well cared for example, like this one, will set you back around about £50,000. But just like the Z8, it is likely that these are only going to go one way. BMW has a proud 87-year history of producing open-top two-seater sports cars or roadsters. The first was this, 1934's BMW 315 Sports Roadster, which featured a tapered rear end and sweeping front wheel arches to improve air resistance. BMW made only 230 315s, and it may have only generated 40 brake horsepower, but it paved the way for a whole generation of sporty, open-topped BMWs, including its successor, the 319, and this 328 Roadster. But it wasn't until the mid-50s that the Roadster returned, and boy did it come back with a bang. This is the simply incredible 1955 507, the most beautiful BMW ever made. This sleek masterpiece boasted 150 brake horsepower from its 3.2 litre straight-six engine, and a top speed of 136 miles an hour. 251 were made, including one owned by one of my heroes, John Surtees, which sadly I missed out on buying. Roll on to the late 80s, and of course the Z1 appeared. More about that later. And the Z1 was followed by the hugely successful BMW Z3 in 1995, another pretty car, this time based on the underpinnings of the humble BMW Compact, and featured in the Bond film GoldenEye. The Z8, as seen here, arrived in the year 2000. This was also a Bond car, but as you can no doubt tell, was also a visual homage to the 507. This time a BMW Roadster ditched the straight-six engine in favour of a V8 and all aluminium space frame chassis, but its high price meant that only 5,700 were ever made, and they are now appreciating collector's items. If you've got one of these, you've made a smart move. And the latest BMW Roadster is of course the current Z4, first launched in 2002. A nimble yet somehow uninspiring car that, to me at least, holds no allure whatsoever. So this is the first time I've ever driven a BMW Z1. I cannot tell you how excited I am. I've done a lot of research about this car, but nothing can prepare you for the first time that you drive it. Left-hand drive, they're all left-hand drive. There were some conversions done, but I'm not entirely sure they were that successful. So you have to get used to driving this car in a left-hand drive format. Instantly, I'm transported back to a simpler time. We're talking the late 80s, when the BMW E30 platform 3 Series was out, which was a beautiful, sweet car, and really the bedrock of everything that BMW has been since. The underpinnings of this car are the 325i E30. Its top red paintwork is in unblemished condition. It's probably one of the finest that you will find anywhere. The owners have upgraded the frankly terrible stereo with one of those super cool Blaupunks, which gives you all modern functionality but obviously look like old classic items, of which I heartily approve. And we got some pigs in the road. Now, the first thing you do notice is that these sills are very tall. They are part of the car's safety cell, and up here you can really get a sense of this rollover hoop, and yet all of that robustness and rigidity is mated to quite the most silky smooth 2.5 litre straight 6 engine that you will find in any car of this period. Honestly, it is such a honey of an engine, so smooth. Obviously, by today's standards, this is no rocket ship, and I think we can all agree on that. But if you move the gear stick in an unhustled way and then drop down a couple of gears, you still get quite a spirited burst of acceleration. The ride is smooth, the steering is relatively light. It's a lovely unadorned steering wheel, classic of the period. I've got some very clean, classic BMW dials in front of me. Speedometer, rev counter, fuel gauge and temperature, and that's it. There's almost no controls in here, but I'm told if you change the heating setting just a nanocentimetre to the right, it becomes so roasting as to be unbearable. So I don't tend to mess with any of that. You've also got, of course, a ashtray, because we are talking about the 90s, electric windows which can operate independently of the doors, and that's it. I can see that gleaming red paintwork all around. The mirrors are in a great position as well. You don't rush the gearbox. That's one thing you need to know about early 90s BMW gearboxes, is you need to take your time. Smooth but sure. It's the sort of car that you don't drive at 9/10ths. You just take it easy. Here we go, let's take it on the corner. Oh, bit of body roll, but it dealt with it pretty well. Just a little bit scary. It's hard to forget that I am driving automotive history. This was the first modern open-top two-seater sports car for BMW, and since then they've obviously had the Z3, which I also had, and the Z8, and of course now the Z4. I think it's totally bonkers that you lower the doors by pulling a conventional door opening device. So you pull it towards you, there's a sort of crack, and then the whole thing drops. And now, look, my hand is outside the car. Look at this. Look, can you see it? My hand is outside the car. I can touch the ground if I want. If I want to pick some flowers whilst I'm driving, I can. And then you pull the same lever and the door is gently raised by electric motor. Oh, I love it. The only problem with the door down is that you can't really hear yourself think. There's an awful lot of buffeting comes through. But trust me, on a summer's day, this is the way to drive this car. And you can also pat cyclists on the back as you drive by. Well done. I think I'm amongst friends, and it's now time for us to give this beautiful Z1 some beans. Second gear, empty road. We ready? Oh, it's so smooth. Progress is not what you would call ludicrously rapid, but it's acceptable, it's perfectly fine. It'll get you there. This is not going to rip your face off, it's just going to gently push you along the road. And to be honest, that's all I want from this car. I don't want it to be a fire-breathing monster. I want it to be something civilized, and I want to enjoy the surroundings, and I want to enjoy the drive, which is a polite way of saying that it's not very fast. Here we go, nice corner, ready? Whoa. Oh, so nice. Such a sweet driving thing. I know why Jack had a smile on his face when he arrived now. I was going to tell you what it's like when you put the roof up, but to be honest, Jack just said it's a dark, claustrophobic place and that he literally never drives it with the roof up. So I'm going to do the same. Honestly, I can't tell you how thankful I am to Jack for lending me this car today, but there's certainly not that many around, and it's just such a special car in BMW's history. I mean, when Jack called to say, do you want to drive my car, I was giddy with excitement, I kid you not. I'm sure most people on YouTube will be like, oh, what's that kit car over there? What a load of old rubbish. But for me, and I suspect for you as well, because if you're watching this channel, then you no doubt know your cars and you're a astute individual with good taste, I think you'll really appreciate seeing this car on the move and being driven. This is what being a car guy is all about. It's not a GT3, nor should you drive it like one. It's a super cool automotive dinosaur, and we know how cool dinosaurs can be. But now, sadly, I have to take this car back to Jack and let him drive it away. I've literally got to watch him drive it away, which will be a very sad thing indeed. I've loved my time with this little car. It might not be cutting edge technology now, but it was back then, and it's very, very special. Here we are then, the end of the road. I've got to give the car back. So what are my final thoughts of the BMW Z1? Well, I love it more than I thought I was going to. It's simple, it's fun, it's well engineered, it's well thought out. It's a moment in time that will never be repeated. And I, for one, feel privileged to have driven it. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this episode. If you like what we do on The Car Guys, please subscribe, tell your friends, get them to subscribe too. Leave comments and likes. You know we read them all and we reply to many of them. There'll be another episode next week.